we'll be talking about the latest innovations in ntopng version 5.6 and the new nBox GUI. The highlights of today are the following. I want to give you a short introduction to what we have done in the recent months. And then Alfredo will talk about the new nBox 2023, that is a completely written nBox experience that we have developed in order to create something fresh that is more modern in terms of user interface. Matteo will talk about ntopng 5.6. And then I will be back talking about ntopng scripting, that is a way that allows people to extend the ntopng core, adding new functionalities. And at the end of this day, we'll do an open discussion. So just to introduce you to what we'll be talking today, let me recap a little bit what we have done in the past winter release. Last January, we have introduced a new version of the tools that are basically a major rewrite in terms of code for some of them. First of all, we have introduced a new product called ntop, that it's a software tab that allows people to connect remote devices to ntopng and nprobe. So in essence, it implements a packet broker that allows you to bring packets to a remote monitoring point, an observation point, without using any additional software. And this is available for Linux, Windows, macOS, and FreeBSD. ntopng and nprobe will include the collector component, so that it allows you to collect packets from all those platforms. Then we have created a new ntopng version. Matteo will be talking about that. That includes a new extended version called Enterprise XL, extra large, and of course a bundle. This in order to address some requests of people that have really a lot of interfaces and many hosts to monitor. Then we have released nprobe 10.2. That includes several changes. First of all, in terms of connection to the remote host, Kafka is an addition with respect to the existing 0MQ interface that we always used, so that nprobe can also talk to ntopng through Kafka. We already talked about ntop, and we have also added the support for Google PubSub. So it means that we can connect our tools to the Google Cloud and send, receive from Google the flows that nprobe is producing. Finally, we have pfring 8.4 that includes support for the Intel virtual functions. We'll soon be writing a blog post that talks about that, and that includes new functionalities that allows, for instance, you to monitor traffic and to mirror traffic in hardware, using the Intel virtual function. And of course, we have enhanced the existing NVIDIA drivers for NVIDIA Mellanox cards, in particular for packet filtering. So this one is also a versatile product that allows you to receive traffic and distribute traffic across applications while filtering it. We see a lot of requests for ARM packages. So at the moment we support Raspberry Pi, but we are in the process of building and distributing ARM64 packages, in particular for Ubuntu platform. So this is just a very quick introduction. So let me now pass the microphone to Alfredo, who will be talking about the nBox 2023. Please, Alfredo.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is Alfredo. Today I want to show you the new nBox user interface. First of all, what is nBox? nBox is an hardware appliance that we build. Actually, our partners build this for us because we want to focus on software development. So we are able to deliver hardware appliances in case you don't want to bother with selecting the hardware, installing the software, tuning the software, especially at high speed, or if you don't have even the skills for doing that. So we have those hardware appliances, which are divided into two families, subfamilies, let's say, the nBox NetFlow and the nBox Recorder. The nBox NetFlow is used to process traffic and support flows, for instance, or to analyze the traffic with ntopng, or to collect net flow. So it's a probe or a collector. And the nBox Recorder is a packet recorder. So we're able to dump raw traffic to disk at high speed, up to 100 gigabits per second. So those are based on our software technologies, of course, so pfring, nprobe, nprobcent, ntopng, n2disk, disk2n, etc. So those appliances includes a user interface which is used to manage the appliance. So to configure the appliance, like the users, the network interfaces, the software, to monitor the appliance. So to see what is the storage utilization, for instance, the memory utilization, to see some statistics with the traffic processing, etc. So this appliance used to be like this. So this is the dashboard where you see the system specs, where you see the network interfaces, and there are a few menus where you can configure the appliance, like the time, the management interface. You can set the IP address, for instance. You can configure the applications, etc. This year, actually, the last year, we decided to stop developing this user interface because for a few reasons. First of all, it was hard to maintain it because it was based on obsolete technologies like HTML templates and Perl-based CGIs. It's a 15 years old web interface, so of course it was based on technologies available at that time. Then it was supporting Ubuntu LTS only. Usually we used to support the last or the last few versions, like 18 and 12, 20, for instance, or Ubuntu LTS. And also it was not easy for a user to extend it to add custom functionalities, for instance. So we decided that it was time to stop maintaining that and time to rewrite it from scratch. So we moved to a new user interface based on the cockpit project. The cockpit project is an open source project sponsored by Red Hat that is becoming a standard for managing Linux machines, Linux servers from remote, let's say, using a web interface. Cockpit runs on almost all the Linux distributions. We tested it on Ubuntu, Debian, Red Hat. It can run also on other distributions like Fedora, I don't know. And it's possible to extend the user interface of Cockpit using plugins, which are components written in HTML and JavaScript in essence. So we decided to write extensions for the ntop software. We are delivering our plugins as packages which are written in Vue.js, in essence, which is a really modern way of writing web applications. Really simple to implement, fast. And this allows us also the users to extend it. So we are adding our extensions to the cockpit interface, but also the user can extend it. For instance, this is a dashboard, one of the dashboards available in Cockpit, where you can monitor the box. Here you can monitor the CPU, memory, network, etc. And in Cockpit, you can also monitor other boxes. So in this case, we have configured 2 more boxes in addition to the local one. And as you can see in this chart, you see the CPU utilization for all the boxes. So you can, first of all, monitor. And of course, we want to use this also to monitor our applications. So you can see, you can monitor the traffic processing of our applications we copied. Then, of course, you want to use it to control our applications, so to configure the applications, to start and stop the applications, and to manage them. Of course, you can control the machine using the standard cockpit functionalities. This happens, for instance, you can use it to control the network interfaces, the users, so the accounts, the services running on the machine. You can navigate the file system. But you can, with our plugins, you can use it also to control our applications. I will show you a demo in a moment. And you can use it also to get notified about events. In fact, we extended Cockpit to send notifications. For instance, in this case, we are receiving some notifications on Telegram about nprobe, which has been stopped and started by someone. But let me show you a demo. So this is the login page. We log into the appliance. Here we have some functionalities which are that comes from the Cockpit project itself, like monitoring the box, looking at some, for instance, CPU utilization, who is using the CPU, the memory, etc. You have logs. We have storage where we can check the volumes and the I/O read and write throughput. We can manage the network interfaces, like here, this is the management interface, and we can set the IP address, the HCP, standard stuff. We can manage the accounts, so the users which are allowed to access the box. Of course, in this case, those users are the same that used to log, for instance, using SSH, and similar to SSH, they have different permissions. So you can log as an administrator or as a standard user. So you can change the configuration of the box or just look at the configuration without changing it in view-only mode. You can check what are the active services. And of course, you can start and stop them. And there are other built-in functionalities like File Navigator, etc. Then, as I said, we create our components for managing our applications. For instance, this is a component that allows you to manage, to control, to configure ntopng. For instance, here we can specify which network interfaces you want to monitor. We can specify the local networks. For instance, I can add one more network here to configure the local host in ntopng. You can select, I don't know, the DNS mode used to resolve the IP addresses. You can collect flows from nprobe, etc. We decided to add in this configuration a big difference with the old nBox. In the old nBox, we had plenty of configurations, also difficult to understand. In this case, we have basic configurations. Then the configurator itself tries to guess what are the best configuration for tuning the box, or you can add it in the advanced settings. So if you have some advanced setting, you are a skilled user and want to add more options, you can use this box. Then here you can configure the license, you can check the license status, or you can jump to the logs. If you have trouble starting the application, for instance, you can check the logs here. Of course, you can start and stop the service, or you can jump directly into ntopng if ntopng is running. The same for instance, nprobe. In nprobe, we also have this section where we are able to monitor a little bit the traffic processing. In ntopng, we don't have the same because ntopng has a user interface. In this case, we want to have an insight into the application, the traffic throughput, application performance, etc. So we have also charts here. And a similar way, you can configure nprobe. You can add more nprobe instances. For instance, if I want to create a new configuration for a collector, I can create one. And here specify the net flow collection port, for instance. I can specify if I want to send the flows to ntopng, specifying the ZMQ endpoint or the Kafka endpoint, or if I want to export net flow to another collector, I can save the configuration, run the service. Again, we have license, logs. So here we can jump to the logs, filtering by nprobe. And we can do the same for the other applications like CentOS, hand-to-disk, and the cluster, for instance. The cluster is our zero-copy cluster, which is used to receive traffic from one or more interfaces and distribute the traffic, sending a copy to multiple applications or load balancing the traffic to multiple application instances. So you can do everything using the user interface. Let's take a look also at the end-to-disk interface component, sorry. So here, again, you can configure the interface, the storage path, so the volume where you want to store the data, the pickup files, what is the disk limit for storing so how much space on disk you want to use to store the files, and the maximum pickup file size, or advanced settings. Again, here the user interface itself is adding some more option by default, computing what is the optimal buffer length, other advanced settings based on your minimal configuration that you create here. Then you can use the user interface also to extract the traffic. Here we have this, let's say, scheduler where we can schedule extractions. For instance, you can specify I want to extract the traffic today from this time to this time from this dump set, applying a filter. I don't know, I want to match traffic just on port 443. Let's make an example. I want to save the outputs of this extraction in this folder, like this extraction. And I want a maximum file size of, I don't know, 1 gigabyte, for instance. So you can schedule the extraction. This will take a little bit, and at some point it's completed. Now, as you can see here, we also handle the status of the extractions. For instance, when an extraction is completed, it's marked as completed. When we process it, we mark it as processed. What does it mean to process it? It means that we actually open the folder where we have the output of this extraction. This is using a built-in components in Cockpit, which is the navigator. So you can navigate the file system here. Here we have, for instance, the extraction for the task 27. So this is a pickup file that we can download and open with Wireshark. One more component that we created here is the preferences for the nBox. In this case, we have the notifications. So we are able to send notifications when something happens. So for instance, we can specify if we want all the available events or just the failures. So for instance, if you want to get notification on Telegram, for instance, when someone starts or stop our applications on this box, we can select all events. If you want to get notifications just when there is a failure, we can select failure zone. And we can send those notifications to a webhook, so a URL, or to syslog, a remote syslog server. For instance, we can send notifications to ntopng using this, because ntopng supports syslog ingestion. So we can specify the IP address of ntopng, and we can specify the JSON format, which is supported by ntopng. And we can configure ntopng, configuring an endpoint and a recipient in ntopng. We can forward those events to Telegram, for instance. So we didn't want to reinvent the water, because we already have in ntopng the ability to trigger alerts and send alerts to several endpoints like messaging systems, email, etc. So here we wanted just to add the ability to send those events to a webhook, which is the most used probably way to deliver alerts, and syslog, which is supported by ntopng, that allows us to send notifications to messaging systems, etc. Okay, let me come back to the presentation. Okay, so this is the results. When there is, for instance, an event telling that a probe is being restarted, we receive it on Telegram through ntopng. Now, as next step, what we want to do is to build, using this new cockpit user interface, a centralized console that allows us to, if we have a network with many boxes, we probably don't want to go through all the boxes every time that there is an update, for instance, or if you want to start or stop all the sensors, for instance. So what we want to do is to build a centralized control with cockpit. So ideally, we want a single page where we can control all the services, check the status, have a little bit of charts, and, for instance, update the software, run software updates from a single place. So if you want to test it, at the moment it's available in the development branch only, so the nightly builds, but you can also install the package if you're running stable repository. You have just to install the nBox package, nBox UI actually. Or if you're running the development repository, you have just to run apt install nBox UI or yum install nBox UI on Red Hat based systems, and you get it. You just have to connect the web using the browser to the web interface on port 9090. Of course, this is an open source project. Also, our extensions are open source, so they are available on GitHub in the cockpit ntop repository. So you can also use source code, or if you want to contribute, you're welcome. Okay, thank you. So I think it's time for Matteo to show you what's new in.
Fredo,
yes?
there's a question for you. What about the PFRing support in the nBox for adding licenses, checking the status, etc.? Okay, so at the moment we decided not to add the PFRing configuration here because it's something, let's say, low level, something difficult for people to understand usually. So we decided to do that manually at the moment. But of course, we can add a component, so a new page here for doing that. But usually, let's say 90% of the case, you don't have, for instance, zero copy drivers. So you just install this and use it as is. If you need zero copy drivers, you need a little bit of knowledge of skills for configuring and running them anyway. So you usually use that manually. But yeah, you can add an extension for managing also that. But so far we didn't add it. Any more questions before we move to ntopng? Alfredo, is it possible to upgrade the packages using the new nBox GUI? Yes, let me show you. There is a built-in feature of Cockpit here, which is the software updates. So you can just go here and install all the updates. So again, as I said, the next step will be to add a feature, a component here that allows you to control many boxes and run the updates on all the boxes with a single click. What is nice is that there is also a terminal here. So for instance, for configuring PFRing, you don't have to SSH, but you can use the user interface. Yeah,
Any
I
other
think
questions?
this was the last one at the moment. So we can move to Matteo and maybe later collect additional questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, let me share the screen.
Stop this.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, you can zoom it at the full page if you can.
Yeah, sure.
It seems that somebody is not able to hear you. Can you speak a little bit louder, Matteo?
Yes. Give me a second.
Yeah, good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hello everyone. And today we are going to take a look at the new ntopng stable version, the 5.6 version. So in this release, in this new stable version, we try to enhance many aspects of ntopng, starting from the CPU usage, RAM usage, etc., to the even usability of the software itself and the flexibility and visibility of the network. So first of all, we decided to rework totally the time series. The time series because for many reasons we decided to rework them. First of all, because previously it was an old style, let's say, page, so its usability was pretty low, and for this reason we decided to rework it. But not just for this reason, but one problem we had with the previous time series was the flexibility. In fact, if you wanted to take a look at multiple time series, you had to switch between pages, switch between time series, time frame, etc. All the times reloading even the page. So we totally refactor the page using the Vue.js framework, and now users can do multiple things with the new interface. First of all, from a single time series page, you can add even multiple time series. In fact, as you can see from the screenshot, there are 2 different time series in the page. Because now it is possible to add multiple time series both on stacked chart, so on a single chart, or on multiple charts. But not just that, other than adding multiple time series on a single chart, etc., there are other possibilities. First of all, it is possible to export charts as images. In this way, users can even export those images and send them via email or save them on the system. Then it is possible with the snapshot feature we develop to save a configuration. For saving a configuration, I mean that, for example, you added 3 time series on that page, and most of the times you want to check those 3 time series. So you save that configuration, and then in the future, whenever you want to take a look again at that configuration, at that specific configuration with those 3 time series, you just reload the snapshot. Then, other than the time series refactoring, we added many new features. Most of them are mainly to understand to have a better view of the network, to take a look better at the host, at the peers of the host, and even at the asset inside the network. And for asset, we mean, for example, the servers available inside the network. Let's start to take a look with a new feature we developed, the OSSAN key. The OSSAN key, with the OSSAN key, it is possible to take a look at the host and its peers. But not just that, even we can understand with which protocol they are talking with, the traffic that they are doing on that specific flow, let's say, on that specific protocol. And it is possible even to filter out by internal traffic, traffic inbound and traffic outbound. In this way, users are able to understand if an host is doing some suspicious traffic and with whom he is doing it, and even with which protocol. Another enhancement regarding the visibility of the network is the ports analysis. With the same idea of the host SAN key, we decided even to give more visibility regarding ports, because sometimes in a network it is really important that just specific ports are used in a network. So we wanted to understand if there was some interesting suspicious traffic towards non-standard ports, let's say. Ports not usually used on a specific network. In that case, we can use this page to understand on which VLANs, because this works even for VLANs, there is traffic towards those specific ports. Again, to understand the asset of the network, we added many more features. For example, like the asset map. The asset map, from the asset map, it is possible to understand the NTP, EMAP, DNS, POP, and SMTP servers of a network, the peers that are talking with those specific servers, and when they talk to them. Because many times it happens that some host is breached inside the network, and it starts sending DNS packets, acting like a DNS server when it shouldn't, for example. And in this way, you are able to understand if all the servers are right or not. And we had added many more features to understand, for example, the alerts. The alerts, we decided to add the so-called bubble map to understand the route layers. So the most used alerts, and at the same time, the host with the most score. Or we added other features like the asset, but regarding a specific host, so it is possible to understand every host, which server, which asset in a network contacted, and many more features. Everything to have a better visibility of the network. Then again, regarding historical flows, in the last 5.4 version, we released the support to ClickHouse, and every time we are trying to enhance it by adding new features, new content, and new data that users are able to check from the historical flows. For example, we added many new filters like the network Sidra, community ID, but we added even many aggregated new pages, for example, the top sites. So in that way, users are able to check the sites mostly used from a system in the last, for example, day, year, or whatever. And even we added more fields, for example, the error code, or even other fields regarding application and protocols, so the TLS, JA3, etc. Talking about ClickHouse, we decided even to add the support to ClickHouse cluster, because many times, mostly in huge networks, we had, for example, multiple ntopngs. But all these ntopngs had to send those traffic to a single ClickHouse. This was a problem because with a lot of traffic, we are talking about plus 1 gigabit per second traffic. So, for example, 100K, 100,000 flows per second, ClickHouse was not able to keep up with these performances. So we decided to add the support to ClickHouse cluster. In this way, multiple ntopng are able to send those traffics, all those data, to different ntopngs, to different, ClickHouse, but it is a ClickHouse cluster. So all those data are seen just like it would be a single ClickHouse. But with ClickHouse cluster, you have, first of all, redundancy. Then you have a better capacity and performances. Again, many times in the last version, we pushed and we talked about cybersecurity. We are still trying to develop this aspect of ntopng, for example, with the visibility of the network I've shown you before, but we even added new cybersecurity checks, for example, the HTTP obsolete server, but we even added new scan and flood checks, for example, the FIN, the reset scan. All these are cybersecurity checks. And then we added even many new checks, for example, regarding SMP. Many times in SMP, if an interface goes down, it is important to have the checks. Or if an SMP interface has an error, it is important to understand if there is an error. So we tried to develop even in this way. But not just this, we decided even to add more regarding alerts. Many times customers asked us to add, for example, a new check when the interface traffic exceeds the specific threshold, or when it is lower than a specific threshold. Every time we decided to develop these traffic rules. In this way, users are able to say, okay, this host shouldn't exceed this specific traffic, and they can simply configure it. But this does not stop to the traffic, but it is for every pretty much time series we have in ntopng. So traffic, score, applications, categories, all those time series are available for a new traffic rule. And whenever the traffic is exceeded, a new alert is going to be triggered. With a specific frequency, this check is done. So, for example, if I want to check that my interface does not exceed the 5 megabit per second every day, I can just add a new traffic rule saying, okay, this host shouldn't exceed this specific threshold once a day. And you can do it simply with this traffic rules feature. Then again, regarding instead the alert checks and scripting, Luca and Alfredo developed this new Python scripting, so the possibility to do some scripting with Python, but with ntopng data. And Luca is going to talk about it later after the ntopng presentation. Lastly, the last feature we added is the Kafka exporter. The Kafka exporter, because many times nprobe and ntopng talk with a non-reliable label with 0MQ. So we decided to add this Kafka exporter to add a reliable instead way to talk between nprobe and ntopng. And not just that, but we decided even to add a way to export flows from ntopng towards Kafka consumers using Kafka itself. So in this way, you are even able to export these flows to Kafka consumers. Finally, we decided to add the support to multi-tenancy. So we fully supported multi-tenancy even for ClickHouse, so for historical data. So let's jump to ntopng web interface so I can show you directly these new features. Okay. So we are here in the ntopng web interface. Let's jump first of all to the first thing I told you about. So the new time series page. This is the new time series page.
Matteo, sorry,
yeah?
can you enlarge the font if possible?
Oh, sure. You should be able to see better now, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, on the chart there was a request to show a complete drill down from a peak in the chart to the layer 7 contacts. So in case you see a peak, you know who is going to do that, who are the responsible ones.
No, sorry. Could you repeat, Luca? Sorry.
Yes, suppose that there is a peak, the traffic peak on the right side. Okay, there is a question for you. So move from the peak in the chart to the hosts that are responsible for that peak. So to the top talkers, to the top host responsible for.
Ah, okay. Yeah, sure. All right. For example, here we have a peak of traffic. Okay, we can simply drag and drop to enlarge the time frame, and from here you can just simply drill down, and here you can see top senders and top receivers. In this way, you are able simply to understand if in a specific time frame there was, for example, here, who's the current of those peak. We can check from the top sender and top receiver, and we can see that, for example, here probably the IP that did all this traffic was this level machine with 3.17 megabyte of traffic. And in fact, here you can just add, for example, here we want to see this traffic and the traffic of the interface with this level traffic. So we can simply add by clicking Manage Time Series. We jump to the Add Time Series, and for example, we can add an host time series regarding the host we were interested about, and this should be this IP. Let's see. Okay, no, not this one. Devil should be the maybe the. Let's see if it is this IP. No. Okay. Yeah. And from here, you can add even many time series. For example, we want to add, for example, let's take a look at the network traffic. We have the local network traffic. Yeah, interface N1. Okay. And we want to add, we even can decide to add different time series of this specific host. For example, here you can see all the time series of this network. So we can add even the score time series. And whenever you add a new time series, all these time series are going to be put on a different chart. Now let's, for example, put last hour. Okay, as you can see, these two hosts doesn't have traffic. So as you can see both charts with those time series. Here we don't have traffic, so we can even remove them. For example, let's remove the host time series, and you can see here those two charts.
Matteo, there are some questions on the chat.
Yeah.
How can you save the chart?
Yeah, exactly. With the snapshot features. To save these charts, you just need to click on this Manage Snapshot icon. And here you have the Add Snapshot. For example, let's put test as name, Add Snapshot. And here, if you jump to the Manage Snapshot, then again, icon, instead of clicking on add snapshot, you jump to manage snapshot, and you can see, for example, this specific snapshot I saved previously. And you can decide to apply the current time frame or use the previous time frame. And whenever you click on apply, the page is going to be reloaded with that specific snapshot.
Okay, there is another question. How can you visualize the layer 7 contacts for instance, for a peak, for a host, so that you have on your screen?
Yeah. Okay. You can add new time series for the host itself.
No, then, to see the flows, that have created the peak. Can you show how to jump to the historical page?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, it is simply done. We just drill down in this specific time frame, for example, and then you have here the icon jump to historical flows. And whenever you click here, all the flows in that specific time frame, as you can see, are shown. Here, for example, I have 20 flows, and you can simply sort by traffic, and you can see all the flows that are done on that specific time frame.
Can you show, Matteo, also the custom queries, for instance, to get just the layer 7 contacts?
Yeah. If you click instead here, from here you can jump from the flows itself. So this type of table.
Sorry, the drop down is not visible on Teams, but there is a drop down there. So
yeah.
you have a few options with
there are a lot
queries.
of options. I'm going to show you some of them. For example, here, top L7 contacts. I selected this specific time frame. So whenever I click on top application contacts, all the, for example, in this case, flows are going to be shown with the specific protocols. But you can even, for example, check the top sites. And this page is the one I was talking about in the slides. So here, for example, you can see that this host requested for this specific URL one time, but it had a volume, 400 Citra volume. So there are many aggregated information. We have top server, top clients, everything to understand better the state of the network, let's say, and to analyze if there is a problem. I want to show you another example of a feature I talked about. For example, we have the local host traffic rules, the traffic rules I was talking about. This is this page here. Then we have the server ports analysis. In that way, you are able to understand, for example, here, I have the untagged VLANs. On the untagged VLANs, I have, for example, HTTP protocol talking on port 3000, HTTP protocol but talking on port 1900, and then I have this SSH protocol talking on SSH port. And we can even decide to just filter out by TCP protocols, UDP protocols, and choose even a little time frame. Here we decided just to put some specific time frames for the live flows, the last hour, for example, let's say. And here you can see in the last hour the flows and towards which ports they were done. Another, for example, visibility of the network, we have the SAN key. So you just jump to an host, and then there is this specific icon. And then when you click here, you can see, for example, that my devel host is talking with this IPv6 host on the local network. Otherwise, you can even choose to show the flows, the inbound flows. Here, for example, we have no data, and the same goes for the outbound because we just have local traffic. So let's jump back to the slides. Do you have any other question regarding this part?
I think that's all. If you want to show how to drill down from alerts to flows, is something else. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Regarding that, you just, for example, jump to the alerts. Let's say flow alerts, and from here you simply jump here from the action button. Whenever you click on this, for example, I'm interested in this flow. Let's take a look at the host, at the flow. You can both jump to the alert information we have with the info button. Otherwise, you can simply click on historical flows if you have configured the ClickHouse, and from here you have the same exact flow, and whenever you click on info, you are going to see all the information regarding this specific flow. For example, alert triggered, the score, the flow related info. So, for example, here was a HTTP application, so you have the HTTP information, etc. So we even took a look at the ntopng performances, and we saw that there was a huge improvement in performances between version 4 and version 5.6. We have a lot less CPU usage and half of the memory and thread number. This with both a single interface and multiple interfaces. Lastly, talking about an edge, we added support instead for the multi-one and multi-run, and added support for all the management of the VLANs, so adding VLANs, removing VLANs, etc. And even we added the support of the DHCP service. Lastly, I'm going to talk about ntop, the new software we released. It stands for Network Top. It is a software that simply can access to the network packets from a remote location and send these packets towards another location. We have many use cases for this ntop. For example, if we want to analyze a specific network, or we want to collect this data on a remote location, we just use the top and send these packets towards this remote location. And for this reason, we even added the support towards ntopng and nprobe. So ntopng and nprobe can read the packets sent from ntop and report you the data. So this is pretty much everything regarding ntopng and edge and ntop. Luca?
Yes, if you stop, you can share my screen. Okay, this is the last part of the webinar. Okay, and we'll be talking about ntopng scripting. What is the problem? So far, we have mostly developed from ntop the core of ntopng. But there are sometimes needs for users that are not developers to create something that can be created by themselves for solving a very specific problem that it is not very general. So, for instance, alert me when there is a certain certificate issued by somebody. Okay, or alert me when there is a connection whose throughput on BitTorrent is above 1 gigabit. Or report me when there is a problem with Zoom calls, things like that. Okay, things that are not super general, but can be important for somebody. So, for instance, we have some customers that are using ntopng in IoT, and they're monitoring, for instance, ovens for baking bread, and they want to know when the oven has talked with the central location or not. Very vertical situations. And we don't want to implement this inside the ntopng engine because, okay, first of all, it requires C++ coding, so not everybody can do that. But also because this code should stay private, because these people can use it for themselves. Just to give you an idea of how things are working, in ntopng we have two basic blocks. One is the fast part, one is the low part. In the fast part, we are processing packets. Okay, so it is coded in C++. It has to be fast and reliable. The low part instead is used for the GUI and for specific activities that are not time critical. Just to give you an idea of a flow. A flow has several events. One is called the flow start, so when the flow is starting, so a new flow is created. The second event is when the protocol from NDPI has been detected. Then, whenever there is a periodic activity, and this event is triggered every minute, and then a new event before the flow end. In essence, we want to intercept this and allow people to do interception of these events in Lua, because Lua is a simple scripting language. So just to give you an idea how this works from the technical standpoint. So we have mapped in C++ some methods, okay, that are available from Lua. So whenever from Lua you call host.ip, so it means that you call a C++ method that at the end gives you, for the current host, the user IP address, okay? The same for bytes and packet and so on. It is possible from Lua to read or to write, so it's bidirectional API. This means that whenever there is an event, so I show you the event, for instance, periodic flow, the virtual machine, the Lua virtual machine is executed, and then the virtual machine executes the script that the user is coding, okay, through a check, and then the script, does something. So let's make an example. This is a very vertical situation created by, for somebody who needed something very specific. So I wanted to do this. So for all the flows from this host 192.168.1.178 send to 1.1, okay, that is TLS quick. Okay, if the issuer DNS is, Technicolor like this one, then trigger an alert. Okay, this is a typical example. An example of something that is very specific to a user. And as you can see, you can code this in Lua, so it's a simple scripting language. And whenever you change the script, you can reload the script while ntopng is running. So no need to restart the application. The drawback of this situation is that at the moment, Lua is not as fast as C++. For the same script that in C++ takes 1 microsecond, in Lua takes 30 microseconds. That is much slower. But because of this, if we trigger an event, for instance, every once in a while, so for instance, when a protocol is detected, or once a minute, this drawback is not that bad, because it means that because you can have 1 billion events, okay, 1 million microseconds per second, so you can see you have 100 million possible checks that you can execute in Lua. So it is slower than C++, but still acceptable. And as you can see here, we are triggering an alert. So you can trigger an alert very easily, and the alert appears in the same window page that Matteo has shown you before as a triggered alert. And as a triggered alert, you can trigger an action. So for instance, send you a notification on your messaging system, or execute a script, or do something very custom that you can decide. Alfredo has shown you before that, for instance, you can receive a message on your phone for a specific event. This is the first part. So how to enhance the engine of ntopng triggering specific alerts for very specific situations. Another example is through the Python API that was mentioned before. So we have created a Python package that you can install with pip3 and install ntopng, and then it will download whatever is necessary on your laptop. And then with using this API, you can connect to an ntopng. So in essence, ntopng exposes through the web interface, in this case, the REST API, the ability of manipulating the state or reading the state. And this Python interface allows you to do that from Python, and to do even something more than that. So for instance, you can trigger an alert handler written in Python or in shell script if you prefer. So whenever something is happening. And also you can call this Python, and you can enhance everything by feeding ntopng with external checks coming from, for instance, Suricata. from a software that is based on signatures, whereas ntopng is based on behavior. So you can have the best of both worlds. So in essence, you can take the data, inject it in ntopng, trigger an alert, and send this alert to a remote messaging system. As I said before, you can enable the check because this check is a standard check. So whenever you go to settings on the left side menu bar, you go to behavioral checks and you enable this check. This means that at this time the check will be available. And the check is very simple. So in essence, it is a simple script, okay, that is called. So whenever something bad happens in a JSON, so you simply have to decode the JSON with JSON load, and then you have all the possible fields. You can do whatever you want with it. So for instance, here you go to the event part of ntopng. So in the notification, you create an endpoint with your script, and then the script triggers an alert. With the script, you can do many things. So for instance, you can connect to an extender consumer, and you can create, for instance, a report. In this example, we'll show you how to create a report. Inside the ntopng class that is written in Python that we have shared, it is also possible to create PDF reports that at the moment are not available, inside the ntop GUI. So this is an example. So whenever you connect to ntopng, you must have some credentials. So for your user that you want to use, you simply have to generate from the ntop GUI a token, and then you can say to ntopng, I want to connect to you. I want to trigger a report, to generate a report for a certain IP address, interface, and so on. And then the report, it is generated this way. So in essence, whenever something happens in the event is triggered, okay? And ntopng basically calls the Python script. The Python script creates a PDF, and the PDF is sent to you with the alert information. So you can receive that, as Fred has shown before, on your phone. So this means that it is possible to use the Python API not just for retrieving data from ntopng, but also for being notified with very specific information, with a very nice PDF that you can forward to your boss or to your colleagues, containing the event information. And this is just an example, because in addition to the event, you can have, for instance, tables of the peers that have been involved, or a chart at the end of the PDF that shows you the traffic during that event. So now I want to give a quick overview, because we are a little bit running out of time, about the next steps. Okay, so as you know, we plan to have a release every 6 months, more or less. So the next release will happen during the summer. So we have many things in mind, and just to give you a preview, the first thing we want to do is asset management. So in essence, ntopng, it is able to collect the data from any host, from traffic and so on, but everything, it is live. Instead, we would like to collect this data and store it for some time for keeping track of assets. This is very important, because sometimes people need to account the number of hosts that are connected to the network. If something has changed, very basic things that today we don't do, even though this would be possible. We want also to aggregate alerts, introduce some, I don't want to say AI-based, aggregation or filtering or clustering of alerts, but in essence, it is like that. So in essence, instead of saying this is what is happening, we want to say, okay, these alerts are not relevant for you. These alerts are very relevant for you, and they look all similar to this. So in essence, you have this problem. So instead of having very basic signals that are alerts today, so we try to create the next level, upper level signals that are very easy to understand. We want to implement a new dashboard and produce PDF reports from inside the ntopng. So in essence, what we have shown you today with Python, it is just a preview of the plans that we have in mind, so that ntopng can create reports on the fly or periodically send them by mail, or can be scripted, because you have seen that this is already possible, so that it can execute specific actions and report data in HTML, PDF, or whatever you like. And going back to the first part of the talk, when Alfredo was talking about N2Disk, one of the things that we want to do is also to implement something we call a smart packet recording. That means that in addition to having flow recording, because we store flow in the database, alert, drill down, and everything you have seen today, we also want to have N2Disk running while the traffic is flowing. And the problem of ntdisk is that it can exhaust your disk space with a lot of traffic that it is not relevant. But since ntopng today, it is able to understand what traffic is relevant and what is not, because there is an alert, there is a score that is non-zero associated with the traffic, we want to add to ntdisk the ability of filtering out the traffic that is not, special, doesn't have anything special with it, so zero score, and save the traffic of very special hosts, for instance, hosts under attack or hosts that are creating troubles, so that we can reduce the disk space simply focusing on that. This will be an optional feature, so it means that you can decide to record everything as it is today, or only specific traffic that is just what we call smart recording. And another development that is already started, while the other two are just planned, is the ability to use ntopng to create we call homemade blacklist. Let's talk about this use case. In many companies, okay, there are hosts that are producing noise, or there are hosts that are simply not available. So you have a subnet, for instance, that is not full. And when you have an attacker, or when you have something bad happening, like in the first phase of an attack is called reconnaissance, we are using ntopng to detect these cases, simply creating some sort of lightweight honeypot without installing a honeypot. So namely, ntopng, it is looking at the traffic, it is looking at how hosts are reacting with respect to the traffic. It is creating a model, and for each host, ntopng, it is decided where this host is not replying, or it is replying in a way that is unexpected, simply because this host is being, scanned, or is being, under attack, or whether this host has been misconfigured, or if you have, some old configuration in your network that is creating trouble to you. And in essence, we also want to create a blacklist, not just based on the blacklist that we can download from the internet. These are part already of ntopng, but also based on the traffic that we see on our network. This is particularly important for people that are on the internet, service providers, for instance, that sometimes are under attack, or basically every day they're probably under attack. So whenever there are some hosts that have been attacked, to learn that this is an attack and to propagate to the other host this information. So something we call, a homemade blacklist, simply because it is created on the traffic that we see on a specific network, and not on the traffic that somebody has seen maybe across the internet. This is already being complemented with information that are coming from services. So for instance, this is an example. This is just a Telegram chat that we use internally for debugging of a way to distribute alerts and information about hosts that are violating services that we monitor. Because the problem of monitoring traffic today is that most of the traffic is encrypted. So even if a certain connection looks a legitimate connection, we don't know what is happening inside. So for instance, we don't know if somebody is trying to guess a password, or if somebody is trying to do something bad with WordPress. So this means that we have created some software application that you can install on the machine, okay, that are monitoring specific log files, and whenever something bad happens, these are used to notify ntopng about this badness. So therefore, we try to integrate this with the traffic view. To make this long story short, we want to protect a company, okay, not just relying on what third-party companies are reporting as such as a blacklist, but also trying to propagate this information and learning from the traffic whenever there are some situations that are bad, okay, with specific to security, and reporting this information not just to the same ntopng instances, but also to other ntopng instances. In fact, one of the things that we're planning is that all the ntopng instances that want to be part of this, let's say, campaign can report to a central location that can be inside the company or to ntop itself these specific attacks, so that we can create dynamically a blacklist on the fly based on the many thousand instances, hundreds of thousand instances of ntopng that are running every day on the internet, and notifying immediately the other ntopng instances of an attack ongoing, instead of having slow and old-style practices based on file download once a day, let's say, that are not very effective today with C2 attackers that are very dynamic. So this is ongoing. The other parts, are just planned. And I would like to thank you today. I would like to thank you some people that we have met a couple of weeks ago at FOSDEM in Belgium that attended our presentation. That's all for today.